I'm Ryan. This is my brother Daniel. This is Roles in the Family. Today, we are going to be recommending 5 alternatives to the classic abstract strategy game, chess.
Yeah, and whether you love chess or are interested in maybe playing a low-luck abstract strategy game casually, we're going to talk through 5 recommendations that we think are worth checking out. And if there are any games we missed that you think would be a good recommendation here, leave them down in the comments below for others to check out as well. But let's pass it over to Ryan for our first recommendation.
Our first recommendation is going to be Onitama. Now, this kind of condenses the feeling of chess into kind of a miniature chessboard where you each only have 5 pieces on your side, and you have your master and 4 pawns, essentially, and you're going to win by either taking your opponent's master or moving your master to your opponent's master's starting space. So there's kind of 2 different ways that you can win. But it's very interesting how the movement works in this. Instead of the pieces themselves having ways that they move, there are these animal spirit cards that define different movement templates. And on any given turn, you're going to have 2 in front of you that you can select one, and you can move any of your pieces using that movement template. However, after using it, you are going to then pass that card, which is then going to become available to your opponent on the next turn. So in any game, you have 5 of these animal spirit cards that are getting passed back and forth as you're using the movement template. So you need to kind of strategically figure out how to move to position yourself, but also consider which cards you're making available to your opponent and which card you might be getting in return. And it's very fun because there's more than 5 animal spirits in the game. So every game you can mix it up. Which animal spirits are in play. The movement templates can really change the feel of the game. So if you're wanting something that kind of feels like chess but has an interesting twist on the movement rules, we definitely recommend Onitama.
Our second recommendation goes to a beautiful abstract game, Santorini. In this game, each player has 2 builders on this 5x5 grid, and on your turn, you can move one of your builders and then build a level of a building next to that worker. And ultimately, you're trying to move your workers and climb up the levels to get up to the 3rd level to win the game. But there's actually a 4th level on the buildings, a cap that you can put to help block your opponent from getting onto the top of the 3rd level. So what's really fun about Santorini is it kind of creates this 3D spatial element of analyzing the board and viewing the best path to get up to the 3rd level. Am I ahead of my opponent and I can race up to the 3rd level? Or maybe you're lower than your opponent and you got to play more defensive. You got to run around with your builders and start capping buildings so that you can flip where you're at with the opponent. Now, that in and of itself is a really unique way of kind of viewing the board and all of that. But what's really fun about this game is there are a ton of god powers that you can play with. And these aren't just little things. They completely change the game. I mean, there's god powers that completely change the win condition. One, you could, if you jump off the 2nd level of a tower all the way down to the ground, you just win the game. And that completely changes how you play. There's ones that let you, instead of building 1 building, you can just build 2. I mean, these are incredibly powerful powers, and the way they interact with each other is just fascinating. So if you like the head-to-head of chess, but you want to take it into kind of this 3D spatial element, Santorini is an awesome one to check out.
Our third recommendation is going to be Hive, and specifically the Hive Pocket Edition that we feel is really great for being able to bring and play anywhere. It's very portable. And Hive is a very interesting game because, unlike many abstract strategy games, it doesn't actually have a board. The pieces themselves make up the play area. There's these hexagonal, really chunky pieces with different bugs, and as you put them out, they all need to stay connected in what's called the hive. And so you have this kind of evolving group of these tiles, and ultimately the goal is you need to completely surround your opponent's queen bee with any pieces. It could include your opponent's pieces, and conversely try to keep your queen bee from getting surrounded. But each of the different bugs has different movements. And so, for example, a spider always moves exactly 3 spaces around the border of the hive. or a grasshopper is going to jump over as many in a straight line and land on the other side. There's even the pill bug that can climb up on top of the hive and walk one at a time. And if it's on top of a bug, including the queen bee, that bug cannot move at all. So there's really interesting just interactions with the different bugs. You always have the opportunity to either bring out a new bug or move one that's out there. And as the hive evolves and changes, there's just some really good opportunities for clever plays or ways to kind of trap your opponent to try to get that final move to get their queen bee. So if you want something that's very portable, very durable, this is a great like camping game. The pieces are all completely waterproof. We really do recommend checking out Hive.
Our next recommendation goes to the game Shobu. Now, this takes the singular board of chess and breaks it up into 4 boards, and each board have players' pieces. Each board has 4 of each player, and the goal of the game is if you can push off all of a player's pieces on one of those boards. Now, how you're moving the stones is really interesting because on every turn you have a passive move and an active move. Now, your passive move always has to be on your side of the rope that divides the players. So it's got to be on your side. And this passive move can't push any stones. So you can just move a stone, but you can't push any opponent's stones. But then your active move always has to be on a board that's the opposite color of your passive move. And your active move does allow you to push stones off. And so this creates a fascinating way of thinking about the board, because you might be looking at a board and you're like, I really want to push that person's stone off over there. Well, then you got to think, okay, well, what do I have to move of the opposite color on my side to push that stone off? And as a result, this creates some really interesting defense strategy mechanisms where, if maybe you're getting really threatened on one board, well, your opponent can only move stones on that board if they can make a passive move on the opposite color on their own side. And so maybe you actually block their stones on their own side so that they can't move on here. You're trying to manage all of this on 4 different boards. It is such an interesting way of thinking about these different moves across 4 boards. It's a lot of fun and definitely one worth checking out. Shobu.
And our final recommendation is going to be Yinch. Now, this is a game that has a very classic look to it and actually has some similarities to some classic games such as checkers and Othello, but brings some really unique ideas to the table. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to have 5 of their rings out on this board at the intersections of kind of this hexagonal grid. And on your turn, you're going to get to place a disc of your color in any one of your rings and then move that ring in a straight line. Whenever you move a ring in a straight line, it can jump over one group, kind of a row of discs that encounters and land on the other side. And when it does that, it is going to flip all of the discs that it jumped over. Now, flipping them is going to reverse the color. So any that were your discs are going to change to your opponents. Any that were your opponents are going to change to yours. So each turn, it's this decision of where do I want to bring out a new piece of my color in one of my rings, but then how do I want to move that ring to flip things to most effectively ultimately try to get 5 in a row. The goal is you want 5 in a row of your color. Now, you're not just trying to get 5 in a row one time. When you get 5 in a row, those are going to be removed, and you actually have to remove one of your rings from the board to be your score counter, to count as you've gotten 1 5 in a row. And what's really interesting about that is you are now weaker on the board. You have fewer rings than your opponent. So there's a little bit of this self-balancing. As one player gets closer to winning, they actually have less resources to try to go for their final 5 in a row. Ultimately, the player that can get 3 5 in a rows first is going to be the winner. So if you want a low luck abstract game that has kind of that classic look, but has some really clever twists that make it really different from some of those classic games, we really recommend looking at Yinch.
We've got links to all of these games down below if you want to check any one of them out for yourself. And if you like this series of games-like videos, we've got a whole playlist that we're going to be adding all the videos that we do in this series to. And so you can click on that right here, and then YouTube's got another recommendation for you. But we will see you in that next video.